I spent 20 years in the gym and never got lean. Not 20 years of half effort, 20 years of showing up, lifting heavy, knowing what a macro was, and I still spent my entire adult life fluctuating up or down, probably the same 10 or 20 pounds, never once looking like a guy who trained the way I trained. And I used to think that was a programming problem, but it wasn't. It was an identity problem. And I wish someone had told me that 10 years ago because it cost me a decade. But let me back up for a second. See, I grew up husky. That was a word people used in the 80s. It was even a size of pants, as I recall. But to put it bluntly, I was a chubby kid. And at some point, I stopped hearing husky as a description of what I weighed and started hearing it as a description of what I was, permanently, structurally, just how I'm built. And see, kids do that. They take one word and they turn it into a life sentence. I was one of those kids. And the wild part is that nobody goes back and checks the sentence when they're 35 or 40 or even 48. You just carry it. So I carried it into every gym I ever walked into. And that's the thing people miss. I wasn't lazy about this. I was in there. I was under the bar. From the outside, you'd have said that guy is committed. But underneath all that effort was a belief that said, you're not the lean type. You're the strong but thick type. And that belief was quietly running the whole operation. Here's how it actually plays out, because it's never dramatic. You don't wake up one day and quit. You have a great 8 weeks. You get leaner than you've been in years. You start to see something in the mirror that's genuinely new. And then, without deciding anything, you loosen up. The weekend gets long, the tracking gets fuzzy. You tell yourself you've earned it, and you have, so it feels reasonable. 6 weeks later, you're back where you started, and you shrug and say, that's just how I'm built. That's not a discipline failure. That's your self-image doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's a thermostat. When the room gets too far from the setting, it kicks back on and pulls you back. And I had my thermostat set to a husky kid. You will not outtrain your self-image. I can promise you that. You can white-knuckle past it for a season, but the moment life gets loud, a bad quarter at work, a sick kid, a stretch where you're just tired, you snap right back to the setting every single time. 2024 is when I finally changed that setting. And I want to be careful here because this is where people expect me to say, I found a better program or I hired some guy, both of which I had done in the past and neither had worked in the past. But this time, nothing about the training was the breakthrough. What changed is that I looked at that belief straight on and asked whether it was actually true or whether it was just old. And it was just old. It was a kid's conclusion I'd never updated. I was still taking orders from an 11-year-old. So I made a decision, not a goal, a decision. I'm a fit man. That's who I am now. Not who I'm trying to become by December, who I am on a random Wednesday in February when no one's watching. And once you make that decision honestly, something strange happens. The behavior stops requiring so much force. You're not dragging yourself to do things a lean person does. You're just being consistent with yourself. Motivation is the fuel you need when your actions and your identity don't match. When they do match, you barely need it. That's the part I wish I had known at 38. So let me give you how to actually do this, because change your identity is useless without some mechanism. First, name the old story out loud. Say the actual sentence. Mine was, I'm built thick, I'll never be lean. Yours might be, I'll always be the heavy one, or I have a slow metabolism, or I'm just not a morning person. As long as it stays in the background hum, you'll never argue with it. Say it out loud and it starts to sound as flimsy as it is. Second, find out where it came from. Almost every one of these traces back to something a specific person said at a specific age. Once you can point at the source, you can see it for what it is. A comment, not a diagnosis, not a law. Third, decide who you're being instead and get specific about that person's ordinary day. Not the highlight reel, the boring stuff. What time does that guy get up? What's in his fridge? How does he handle a Friday when he's tired and the couch is right there? Identity lives in the boring days, not the ones you post about. Fourth, collect the evidence. Your brain will not accept a new identity because you announced it. It accepts it because you keep producing proof. Every day you act like the man is a deposit. Miss a day, fine. You don't lose the account, you just make the next deposit. Fifth, and this is the one that separates people, do not negotiate on the hard days. The old identity doesn't leave quietly. It shows up right when you're tired. And it makes a very reasonable case. Just this once, you've been good, you deserve it. You don't argue with that voice because arguing gives it a seat at the table. You just go do the thing you already decided you do. Now, here's why I care about this so much and why it's most of what I do with my coaching clients now. This is never only about your body. The same thermostat is running your business. If you believe you're a $200,000 a year guy, you'll find a way back to 200,000 no matter how good the year starts. If you believe you're the hardest worker but not the leader, you'll build a company that needs you in every room, and then you'll call that a staffing problem. If you believe deep down that you're the guy who almost makes it, you will almost make it over and over, and you'll have a very reasonable explanation every single time. Strategy doesn't fix that. I've watched people get handed perfect strategy and quietly sabotage it because a plan that outruns your self-image feels like wearing somebody else's coat. And I'll say this plainly because it's how I actually see it. I don't think God made you to spend 40 years defending a conclusion a child came to about you. That's not humility. That's just an old story you got comfortable with. So the question isn't what program you're on. It's who you've decided you are and whether you ever actually chose it or just inherited it. I was a husky kid. I'm not a husky man. It took me until 47 to notice those were two different things. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this every Monday. And if you're ready to change your thermostat, book a discovery call with me. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.